What's up guys, my name is Gabe and welcome back to the Trojan Blade. Welcome back to a brand new video. This is by far the most requested video I've had this entire offseason. Many of you have been curious about the new defensive scheme USC will be running this year. And while I'm not a defensive expert by any means, I do feel like I can do a good enough job explaining what we'll be seeing on the field this year. But before we get into the video, I do want to thank today's video sponsor, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a ticketing service that takes tickets from all over the web and puts them into one very easy to find place. It's truly your one-stop shop for football tickets, basketball, baseball, hockey, you name it, you'll find it on SeatGeek. They even grade every single listing on a scale from 1 to 10, so you know if you're getting a fair deal or not. And now SeatGeek is hooking my subscribers up with $20 off your first order when you use my promo code TrojanBlade at checkout. Thank you so much, SeatGeek. Now let's get back to the video. Okay, so when you talk defensive scheme, you have what's called a base defense. This is what formation you come out in most and build your personnel around. But let's talk reality for a second. Offenses dictate what the defense does more often than not. So while Coach Lynn has a 3-4 base like we've seen with the Baltimore Ravens, with how modern college offenses work, the 2-4-5 nickel is going to be our default base defense. And when you're talking about the 2-4-5 or the 3-3-5, the most common forms of nickel defense, the most confusing part for people is usually the defensive front. And here is an example of that 2-4-5 base against Utah. You see two true defensive linemen with their hand in the dirt, two versatile edge players that can drop into a shallow zone, rush the passer, or contain the edge, but 95% of the time that's going to be a pure pass rusher that is pushing upfield. No more edge players in man coverage against wheel routes. Two off-ball linebackers, both a Mike and a Will that will be responsible for a particular zone, a back or tight end in man coverage, QB spy, you name it, they'll be asked to do it in this defense. Two corners, two safeties, and a do-it-all nickel that is going to be asked to provide run support, man up wideouts and tight ends. And Lynn loves a nickel blitz, so watch out for him coming downhill as well. Now, one thing I love about Lynn is his willingness to attack the offense's weakness. Grinch wouldn't do that, and it was absolutely aggravating to watch. You see here on a 3rd and 6 against Colorado. What's Colorado's weakness on offense? One of the worst lines in the entire country. So what does Lynn do? He brings 5 to ensure everybody is one-on-one. You give me Barry Alexander and Braylon Shelby a one-on-one on 3rd down, sign me up for that. Here's another example to take a look at. 2nd and 9, down by multiple scores in the 4th quarter. CU is going to be throwing the ball here. Instead of having 2 down linemen, get 3 pass rushers on the field and have only 1 true defensive lineman out there. Now at USC, Barry Alexander will be the one with his hand in the dirt. And as one of the premier interior pass rushers in the country, this will create a NASCAR package, which is a fancy term for saying all 4 linemen are pass rush specialists. No run defenders on the field. And when your line is having a field day like Fucklow's was in that game, attack, attack, attack. If we can get pressure with 4 this year, we are going to win a ton of games. Now, when we played against the Baby Bruins, Danton Lynn clearly thought his secondary could clamp up our wideouts because he called an opposite style game than he did against Colorado. His goal against us was to take away the run, take away the read option game, and make us beat them throwing from the pocket, which our O-line was getting destroyed on almost every snap, so that wasn't possible. Look at how UCLA came out on the first drive of the game. That is 3 down linemen, you will not be running the ball on us, and of course we got completely stuffed on that 4th down. That is 9 men in the box. Why we decided to run right up the middle, I couldn't tell you. But when Lynn zeroes in on a weakness, he goes all out to completely take it away. But now let's talk about coverages. One thing I would like to point out, as a Browns fan, for years I have seen Baltimore go cover 0 and run man across the board. And when you have big time corners like I think we do, if you can cover for 3 to 4 seconds, you're going to get home to the quarterback and cause some major issues. Now, I didn't really see UCLA running any cover 0 last year when I did my research. Is Lynn going to be more confident in the Trojan corners as opposed to what he was working with over there in Westwood? Perhaps, but I wouldn't expect to see too much of that week 1 in Vegas. But in terms of what coverages I think we will see, I do have a few examples to show you over on the All-22. Alright guys, so over here on the All-22, UCLA is going to come out here in a single high look, otherwise known as cover 1. You're going to have Kamari Ramsey up here as a single high safety, responsible for reading the play and being a center fielder. And then we have man coverage across the board. Man here, man here, man here. One of the backers is responsible for the tight end, the other one is responsible for the halfback. But when you have a center fielder like a Kamari Ramsey, that allows you to play this cover 1, that really allows you to get in the wideout's face and make the windows really, really small, and also allocate a lot of defenders to help support the run. So you'll see this rep play out here. Very simple cover 1 look there. Now this rep here I had to show you guys, and if we can do this on defense, we're gonna win the national title this year. So what you're gonna see here is a 3-man rush with these 3 guys right here, and then they're gonna drop 7 and quarterback spy right here. So theoretically, when you have 3 pass rushers going up against 5 offensive linemen and a tight end in Lake McCree that's going to chip, you should be in pretty good shape when it comes to maintaining that pocket. But watch what happens here. Just disgraceful from the Trojan offensive line there. That's a brutal, brutal rep. It looks even worse when you see it from this angle. Justin Diedich, oof. But yeah, again, it's common sense in this defense. If Lynn can get pressure with 3, then he's going to do that. He's going to make life as hard as possible on the offense. A lot of it is just common sense, but we haven't seen that over the last 2 years at USC. Next up, here's an example of cover 2. So you're going to see these 2 safeties here have a deep zone. The 2 corners, the nickel and the linebackers all have an underneath zone. This is all about taking away the short and quick passing game. And you're going to see they get a turnover on that play, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't want this video to be an hour long. So you'll see some cover 1, you'll see some cover 3, you'll see some cover 2, you'll see some quarters. He really likes to mix up the coverage, much like an NFL defense. There's a lot of disguise coverages, but again, nothing is overcomplicated. If someone like me can get the general gist of what they're doing, then for these players that speak that kind of language, no doubt it's going to allow them to play faster on the field. All right, next up, let's talk about linebacker play. I really feel like Mason Cobb has a chance to be unleashed in this defense. He's going to be asked to get vertical and attack those holes that Kobe Pepe and Barry Alexander open up. Now, a guy like Eric Gentry is not going to fit very well into this defense. You want Eric either rushing the passer or in coverage. So I don't think we'll see him on the field on 1st or 2nd down very often. Again, you bring Eric in on 3rd down, he can be that dime backer, he can cause a lot of issues for the offense. Whether it's blitzing, dropping into coverage and getting those big arms up, I do feel like they need to find a way to use him. But in this defense, it is going to be a little tricky. But yeah, the linebackers in this scheme are very active. You'll see them blitzing and attacking downhill very often. Next up though, let's talk about gaps. Now, when I think about gapping for a defensive front, I picture it as a coverage. I'll come back to that in a minute. But Lynn runs a 2-gap front. What that means is, and let's just say Kobe Pepe in this case, is responsible for tying up and controlling the blocker that he's lined up on. So that in the case of a run between either A gap, assuming he's lined up as a 0 technique right on top of the center, he can flow to the ball carrier on the left or right side. Or the most likely and desired outcome is 2-gapping creates a hole for a free defender, let's say in this scenario Mason Cobb, to shoot the gap and make the play on the ball carrier. Now, of course, if Kobe Pepe can't successfully win that battle and control the center, you're not going to be able to free up that backer. But of course, the fact that this isn't a true base 3-4, you're going to see both of those 2 interior guys clogging up space and creating a logjam, which when ran correctly and successfully will free up Easton Mascarenas-Arnold and Mason Cobb to attack those gaps and bring down the ball carrier. Everything about a 2-gap defense is about reading the flow of the play and winning at the point of attack. Hence why Lynn says obnoxious communication is a key for this defense. Now earlier I said I picture it like coverage. Imagine 2-gapping is man-to-man defense. You stick on your guy no matter what. You don't line up on either shoulder, and 2-gapping, you line up right on top of the blocker. You stick on your guy no matter what, and your job is to stick on him and let your linebackers eat. Now, I hope that explanation made sense, but a few last things here. There are a few things in this scheme that it demands from its players. Number 1 is versatility. As you can see from the players we're both recruiting and bringing in through the portal, you have to have guys that can do a plethora of jobs for you, because this defense is in its nature very versatile, particularly in the secondary and linebacker spots. You look at a guy like Kamari Ramsey, I feel like he helps illustrate this perfectly. He can be your single high safety in cover 1, he can line up a man against a tight end, he can blitz, he can play out in space, he's a very versatile player. But now I do want to talk about the stand-up rushers on the edge. So I did go through and watched a lot of UCLA tape from last year. As you can imagine, it made me very ill, but I still did it. What I found interesting is how much Lynn had Leatu Latu dropping into coverage. Not deep coverage, not man coverage on wheel routes, but still at least a couple times a game he had him dropping back into a zone. Which if it is just a few times a game, our guys can do that, they can handle it athletically. You look at a guy like Jamil Muhammad, a guy like Braylon Shelby. These guys are athletes first and foremost. They're not going to have much trouble dropping into a shallow zone like that. And of course, what it does as well is just help change up the looks and give the offense more on their plate. But again, those stand-up rushers are going to be pushing upfield. They're going to be containing the edge. And of course, they're going to be trying to get to the quarterback on passing downs. Now, one thing that I'm very curious to see just when we talk general scheme here is how much is it going to change on a week-to-week basis? Because just look in the first few weeks. Week 1, we're going to be playing against LSU. They're going to be spreading the field. They're probably going to be in 11 personnel the entire time. But then just 2 weeks later, we're going to be in Ann Arbor playing against Michigan, which of course, that's going to be 12 personnel majority of the time and 13 personnel sometimes. So the game plan is going to have to be entirely different. Now, in that game against Michigan, I could see 3-4 being what we come out in, just because the personnel is going to necessitate that. But on a week-to-week basis, the offenses are going to be so different. We're going to be playing Washington with Will Rogers, but we're also going to be playing Rutgers with Greg Schiano. Very, very interesting how this scheme is going to evolve week to week. I obviously don't know what exactly Lynn's going to be doing at USC, but as far as what he ran at UCLA, that is about as good as I could explain it. Again, not a defensive expert by any means. If I got anything incorrect, or if you have a different opinion about something, please do let me know down below in the comments. Love to hear from you guys on this. If this video was helpful or educational in any way, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for all the continued support. You're all awesome, and as always, take care and fight on.